Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day, and wowza, Palantir is continuing to soar, especially in the overnight hours. We are now seeing at $181 per share. That is absolute bananas, considering after this earnings report is what pushed Palantir past that 160, and now you see it that just keeps continuing to zoom. We'll be talking about it here in just a few moments on Palantir. Hey, it looks like, 200 could possibly be on the table here by the end of 2025, considering how this market's going. We're seeing more resiliency than what I originally was expecting, mostly just looking at historical seasonality. We're at some interesting points in the market. So we're going to be talking about that. We also have some tariff announcements. Apple is actually making a positive move. It's like, whoa, what's going on? Let's get into the details. Hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos, and let's pop it up on the screen here. First of all, talking about Palantir, my God, we know the earnings. Palantir was sitting at these all-time highs at 160, and that was a big catalyst that pushed it passed through with basically the best earnings I've seen in a long time from a company. You see Palantir up here now at $180 at a current market cap at $423 billion. Now, if people want to talk about the valuation like they've been talking about since Palantir was like $30, then they've missed out on this run. I mean, yes, Palantir is at an insane valuation, but the market does not seem to care. It's been completely disconnected, and one day maybe it'll catch up, but for the time being, I guess nobody really seems to care. Maybe in a few years or something like that, but you can see in the overnight session right here, Palantir is at $181. The stock is still continuing to climb. You even have Kramer coming out here saying Palantir stock is still dramatically undervalued. Whoa, Kramer. We know about inverse Kramer theory for those of you that believe that. Don't be saying too much here, especially for the bulls that are celebrating the all-time highs. We won't want someone to take it away, even after doubling this year. So Palantir, in terms of, technical, looking at, types of resistance and stuff like that, Palantir is just in this price discovery mode. It's continuing to run, and I think as long as macroeconomics are looking good, we're in a bullish market, and as long as we're going to be seeing what's happening here to the broader market here soon, especially at this kind of interesting point, it's at this kind of support resistance area at the 6340. So at 6345 right now where it sits, if we see bullishness continuing into tomorrow, and we'll be talking about Apple here and how Apple could have a good support in the broader market, this is where we could possibly see a retest back up to 6,400 near these all-time highs for the market. Switching over to Apple right now at $219.25, up about $6 here in the overnight session. In terms of what Apple is trading at today, was basically right at 204, right at about this $200 kind of support zone. What's specifically been happening regarding Apple, the first things first is you have President Trump here that actually just announced that he's going to be putting a 100% tariff on chips and semiconductors being imported. Companies like Apple are coming home. He basically made an exception for Apple and NVDA, saying here, but for some reason, you say that you're building and don't build, we're going to back it up. It accumulates, we're going to charge you at a later date. But in terms of the specifics with Apple, I'm going to have posted this here. It's $600 billion that was provided by Apple to basically avoid these tariffs. It's an investment over 4 years with the $600 billion commitment for announcing this American Manufacturer Program that will bring 20,000 new jobs. They're building a 250,000 square foot facility in Texas and opening up a manufacturing academy in Detroit, excluding them to be subject from these 100% tariffs from chips and semiconductors, being imported. And like I said, with the exception of Apple and NVIDIA, we'll be talking about NVIDIA soon here in terms of their reaction. But nonetheless, you see the broader market that does close here. After we saw that Friday sell-off, we're seeing more resiliency and buying the dip than I personally was expecting. I will say that. So closing here at the 63.45, up about nearly another 0.03%. Apple climbing 5% after the White House also confirmed that the iPhone maker is going to boost its investment in this domestic manufacturing like we had talked about before. This is a bullish, I would say, catalyst for Apple. Apple has really been stuck in this zone right here at around this kind of low 200s. They've been criticized with not having any type of, I want to say, brand new products or revolutionary and innovative products into the products that they do offer into their product line. And also in terms of just AI and this artificial boom, it seems like Apple's been kind of behind on the ball. They haven't really developed anything such as, yes, they have Siri, but who uses that? And in terms of the comparison to things like ChatGPT and just even Meta's in Google systems. So in terms of these large language model developments, what we're seeing across, big tech and the Magnificent Seven, Apple's just been kind of lagging behind. So hopefully this can help be a catalyst for them to kind of, I would say, get their stuff together and hopefully not fall behind and get phased out. So Apple's back right here. I think you can see starting to agree with the administration is starting to agree with Trump. What we have seen is a lot of these companies that kind of have been in agreement with Trump take NVIDIA before, kind of appeasing to be his friend, being on his side, showing that, very supportive for manufacturing in the U.S. And then you don't have to be subject to these large tariffs. So it's kind of, playing that business type of negotiation game, and Apple seems to have possibly finally figured it out. So we'll see what happens with them, but we'll be keeping an eye on it. And, how does that, react in terms of the other semiconductor stocks? What we've been seeing in terms of NVIDIA, since that was excluded, popping up here also, NVIDIA now at $180 per share at 122. Hey, Palantir and NVIDIA are trading at around the same as share per price. Obviously, the market caps are, exponentially different, but in terms of per share, trading around that same price. We'll see which one gets a 200 here in the short term. But looking at AMD, what you're seeing is a sell-off on AMD after they reported. They say they're weaker than expected earnings, even as revenue tops the estimates. Now, I think AMD actually had a pretty good earnings report. In terms of their data center revenue, that was kind of more of the big thing that spooked investors, and that's where we kind of saw the sell-off from AMD's actual stock price. So AMD here, as we know, is the second biggest maker of these, GPUs for artificial intelligence behind NVIDIA. And they're starting to roll out with a lot of their chips, announcing here the Instinct MI400 expected to hit the market this year, trying to compete against NVIDIA in terms of just performance and possibly, at a cheaper price. Now, NVIDIA, in terms of their stock price down here, AMD, in terms of the stock price down here, is at 165. And what's interesting is AMD popped up here to about 186, 178. One important thing is, remember when AMD was just trading at like under $100 not that long ago, a few months ago, when everybody called AMD money destroyer or whatever like that, advanced money destroyer or whatever it is, because people were criticizing their kind of rollout and lag behind an AI, and all of a sudden you get this random spike when they start rolling out these AI products in terms of, getting more information regarding that, and you say AMD go on this incredible run. Now what we're going to see is possibly the sell-off here, and is this going to continue? Because, you see AMD, I don't know if in the specifics, if they are exempt anyway from these semiconductors and these chips in terms of those tariff rates, or if there is something in there that I just don't know about. But the fact that AMD is down here to 166 already, dude, after some pretty decent earnings, I would say, I'm going to be keeping this more on my watch list, possibly looking for, a decent long entry here, because I'm bullish on artificial intelligence, for the next remaining years. So for the foreseeable future, until some big thing can change that opinion. But in terms of AMD here at 166, if this continues to fall here and test different support zones, I'll be keeping an eye on it. So I still think AMD, I'm bullish on it long term. Currently don't have a position on it though. So that's where we're sitting in terms of the market at this, 63.45. Like I said, you are at odds with the August and the September seasonality. So, of course, always take that with a grain of salt. Typically, we see lower trading volumes and a little bit of a cool off in the market. And especially as this market's really had a rally from the tariff turmoil back in April and has roared up since then, a cooling off could be justified. But we are seeing somewhat of a consolidation right now. We got that little bit of a dip to about, mid 6200s last Friday. Is that only going to be the dip? I mean, it is possible. We never know what's going to be happening in this market. Things are subject to change in the matter of just a few seconds. So crazy to see there. I'll be keeping an eye on it. Other stocks I've been keeping an eye on, basically been kind of consolidating on the day. A lot of the individual stocks that we've been talking about, like ASTS, Nebius, looking at things like CoreWeave, Hood, all the things that we've been talking about, Tempest, a lot of consolidation today and actually just slightly in the red. So better entries at that spot. That's, those different individual stocks that I'll be keeping on the watch list, but that's where I sit right now. Let me know your thoughts on it. Peace out, take care, and I'll catch you guys later.